Good afternoon. Nice to see everybody today. My name is Jeff Glidden. I work with the Violence Recovery Program here in Fall River, and I am representing on behalf of the Greater Fall River Domestic Violence Coalition. Just want to thank everybody for being here today. We've got a little bit of an agenda. We're going to have a few people speak, share about a project we have going on inside, and then we'll read a proclamation together and raise our flag. But our purpose today is to publicly recognize our shared commitment to end domestic violence, but also, I think, important for me is to appreciate those that are shouldering the work. I'll read the mission of the coalition if that feels okay. The Greater Fall River Domestic Violence Coalition is a partnership of community organizations, survivors, and allies working to achieve a community free from violence. The coalition serves as a platform for members to share resources, network, and collaborate, as well as engages the community by encouraging greater public awareness and transformative action. The coalition is committed to elevating the voices of survivors and dismantling systems of oppression that continue to make domestic violence possible. FRDVC.org. Check us out for more info. I especially want to thank a few of our coalition organizations, the Women's Center at STAR, the Women's Center out of New Bedford, and also South Coast County's Legal Services. They, alongside with me, have done a lot of the work that we do here in this community. And thank you all so much for holding the stories of the invisible and the unspoken. I think I also want to thank so many of the helpers that aren't here today and that don't get recognized, and especially want to honor and uphold the survivors whose lights cannot be extinguished. Want to say thank you to the mayor and the mayor's office for helping support this today, but maybe more broadly want to thank and uplift all of the decision makers and leaders here today, whether you lead a family, a group of peers, an organization, an office, a community, or a city. You're all leaders and your power matters. And so if anything comes from today, maybe we just kind of draw strength from each other, knowing what's important. I'm going to turn it over to one of our coalition members, Jen Murphy, who's going to share a little bit about a project that we have going on inside. And then we'll introduce our next guest speaker.
Thanks, Jeff. All right. Hello, everyone. I'm short. Can you hear me? Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Jen. I'm a clinician here at the Women's Center at STAR, and it was my pleasure to host the Clothesline Project this year and to share it with all of you today. So I want to let everyone know that this project will be on display inside at City Hall for the whole month of October as we continue to raise awareness about domestic violence. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the project before I introduce our guest speaker. The Clothesline Project is a visual display of violence statistics that often go ignored. This is a project that originated here in Massachusetts in 1990 in Cape Cod to initially address violence against women. So I want to say that today our dialogue about this has expanded, and we know that domestic violence and gendered violence are not synonymous. The intimate partner violence is not a binary offense. On the contrary, it happens regardless of gender, sexuality, race, culture, socioeconomic status, etc. The purpose of this project is to continue to increase awareness of the impact of violence and abuse, to honor a survivor's strength to continue, and to provide another avenue for them to courageously break the silence that often surrounds this isolating experience. The expression inherent in creating a shirt provides a tangible way to process. Sharing stories of domestic violence in a community or group format is a collaborative way to begin to dismantle the shame and stigma attached to domestic violence that further contributes to and perpetuates the lack of sustainable resources for survivors. The invitation to reclaim and reframe their narrative on their terms and in their way is a profoundly impactful exercise in resiliency and empowerment for a survivor. This project aims to honor what it took to survive. So with that, I want to thank my amazing colleagues in the Women's Center for helping me facilitate this project. I could not have done it without your enthusiasm, support, and hard work. And more importantly, I want to thank every survivor who participated in sharing a piece of their story. Truly, thank you so much. And with that, I'm really thrilled to introduce our guest speaker for today, Jennifer. Where did she go? Oh, thank you.
I want to start with saying 20 people are physically abused each minute. 20,000 phone calls are made to hotlines in just one day about this topic alone. 40,000 ER visits each year are a result of this problem. 750,000 children are witnesses to this in just 1 year. Domestic violence. My name is Jennifer, and I'm ashamed to admit that prior to 2004, I never thought about the impact of domestic violence. Did I know what it was? Yes. But did I understand the gravity of it? No. And now you might wonder what prompts me to advocate for it now. So, unfortunately, the answer hurts. The short answer is my sister, Jessica. The long answer is a tragic, senseless, heart-wrenching loss. A life that was taken at 22 years old. A mother taken from her babies when they were only 3 years old. A woman who had a whole lifetime ahead of her, but was cut short by the man that she had planned to marry. I would like to say that Jessica was truly the best of us, not because she was perfect by any means, but she somehow mastered learning to live life to the fullest. She laughed loud and often, and she was everyone's best friend. She was one of those people, as corny as it sounds to say, that she lit up a room or she was the life of the party, and I can still picture that infectious smile on her face. She spent her time between loving on her babies and working hard to make them proud by working in healthcare. She was the kind of mother that saved every Band-Aid, filled every page in their baby books with notes, and celebrated every little milestone. She was loved and adored by all her patients and always came home with stories to share with us, proving that she had adored them just as much. So, how does this beautiful life suddenly end? Well, you may expect that I would detail the progression of domestic violence, but here's the truth. There was no progression that we're aware of. There was no evidence of abuse, verbal, emotional, or physical at the time. We discovered she was a victim of domestic violence after her death by the detectives of Fall River. And honestly, I still struggle with this. I will say, hindsight is 20/20, and I do look back and recognize moments of gaslighting, deceit, alienation from her family, and just subtle changes. Only now, after understanding domestic violence, do I recognize this. Looking back, maybe I would have recognized that she spoke softer when her abuser was around. She didn't laugh quite as loud. I could have probed further when I noticed the random bruises on her body, or reminded her a million more times that we were always there for her. I believe she lived a life of an abused woman out of love and fear. She loved her babies so deeply she wanted to keep her family together, and she wanted so badly to fix him, truly because she loved him. She thought she was protecting her family by staying, but who was protecting her? I want to be the person that can tell you where it all went wrong and how to prevent it, but unfortunately, that's not my reality. I didn't know my sister was a victim, and I didn't know that the man whom my family welcomed into their life would be the one to end hers. I didn't know what to look for, and even if I had, I wouldn't have known where to go for help. People wonder why I share her story. And sometimes I wonder if I'm doing the right thing by sharing something so personal and something that really isn't mine to share. There isn't one simple answer. It's a combination of not being able to save her and trying to navigate life without her. You walk 18 years of my life with her, and now for the past 18 years, I've walked them without her. And I don't know how to explain what a bright light the world lost that day, or how badly our hearts broke, or how we walk with a part of our soul missing. But maybe just maybe, her story can save someone else, because I refuse to let her life be lost for nothing. The fight didn't end when her life did. The fight continues on. For every single person without a voice, for every person that has had their light dimmed by an abuser, for every single child that has been affected by this, I refuse to let them fight alone. I've been given the opportunity to see the work that the Fall River Coalition is doing. Meet people that defend the cause, the people that are willing to help if and when you might need them without judgment. And recently I was invited to stop by an event, and I was blessed, absolutely blessed, to meet women that felt comfortable sharing their stories with me. I could wipe away some of their tears, share a few of my own, and just hug them. Because truth be told, what I witnessed will be ingrained in my memory forever. Why? Because I didn't know true strength until I met survivors. Until I heard the stories of their trauma and abuse that I can't even imagine existed. Until the person before my eyes became my hero, because they are the warriors we advocate for. These are the people who need our help. These are people we have to unite with to end domestic violence, to set the precedent in our community as a whole that we do not tolerate abuse and we do not stand by for violence. I'm no expert and I don't have the right answers, but I do have my voice, and that's the tool I'm using to aid in the fight against domestic violence. You may wonder what you can do. A lot of people don't know where to start, what to do. You can talk to your children. You can educate them on violence in all forms. Emotional, verbal, physical abuse, and if you aren't sure what to say, that's okay. There are resources to help with this. I ask that you check your workplaces, question your human resource departments on what resources are available to your fellow employees. Push to make these resources known. You'll be surprised how many people need them. I just want to end with this. We cannot ignore that 1 in 4 women will experience domestic violence in their lifetime. 1 in 4. This could be your mom, your aunt, your friend, your cousin, your daughter. In my case, it's my sister. This is a problem that is personal to us all. We should all be invested in joining the fight. Let's do this together.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, for sharing that story. I think it clarifies why we're here and why this matters. And I just want to appreciate your bravery in sharing that. And I think so often the stories of survivors and their families are silenced or not told. And I'm grateful that we were able to give some space for you today. Thank you so much. And I'll just add, appreciating Jennifer and the folks at STAR as well for the Clothesline Project, and you can encourage folks to stop in. It's inside today at City Hall. If you go right in the atrium building, it's very worth checking out if you have a moment after today. All right, I want to give a moment or two for the mayor to say a few words, and some of our other folks that are here today, and then we'll kind of read the proclamation together.
Well, I just want to thank the Greater Fall River Domestic Violence Coalition for all the work they do day in, day out in the city of Fall River. Listening to that story was a bit much for me. Nobody can hear me, Hello? Is that better? Okay, I got to talk right into it. But I do want to thank the coalition for coming down here today to acknowledge it. I was in the atrium this morning looking at the T-shirts for the Clothesline Projects, and if you have a moment after, it really is something to see. I do want to acknowledge some of my partners in government that work on this kind of issue all the time, and I'm going to obviously let them come up and say a few words, but I'll acknowledge them as a group. First of all, our 3 state representatives, which are everywhere all the time, Representative Alan Sylvia, Representative Paul Schmidt, and Representative Carol Fiola, and City Councilor Linda Pereira has also joined us today. If any of them would like to come up, now is the time to come up and say a few words. Come on up as a group or together. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jennifer, for those incredible words and sharing your pain. Very briefly, we're here to support and say thank you to all of you who are there for our citizens in the community. I think I would add to see the police chief up here as well, because I know that they are on the front line. They're sometimes the first people that encounter domestic violence, and it is one of the worst types of crimes that they see in our community. I really also want to just add one other thing. If you're watching this, there are people here to help. We fund programs, but these are the people that are there for you. Don't be afraid to come forward. They're here to help you. Thank you.
Just quickly, I just want to thank, the media is here, Fall River Media. So very important, because it is these listening to you, Jen, and victims that's so important to deliver that story. And we think always that it's the younger person, because I look and I see all young people. But there's a population that's missed older women and domestic violence. Seldom talked about, but we see it so often. And these are folks who have stayed in relationships that were violent and have been violent for many years. And I just want people to think of that and to be able to reach out. Rep. Fiola mentioned our police. They are truly the first line of support. But there are so many other advocates, and they're here. So thank you all so very much.
Having worked with many victims of domestic violence in my previous jobs, I know that many times you're afraid to come forward and to say that there's violence going on, whether it be emotional or physical. You make excuses for every bruise on your body. You wonder why you're staying there. Know that you can get help. You're not alone. Call these organizations. All of these people are there to help you. You don't need to live like that. And children don't need to see that, because then they consider that to be normal and the abuse continues. So please, if you're watching this, reach out to people who can help you. You're not alone. And thank you all for putting this together.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Linda. You are truly everywhere in Fall River, which we appreciate. I'm happy to be here with my colleagues, Representative Fiola, Representative Sylvia, and of course, Representative Sylvia, you have firsthand knowledge of this issue in your former life as a police officer, and we know that you have specific reference and experience in this, so thank you for your words. Our colleague, Senator Rodrigues, would be here, but he's up in Boston and he sends his best wishes. I just wanted to say it's kind of ironic. We're standing here in the sunlight and recognizing Maureen Flanagan from the Senator's office. We're standing here in the sunlight, beautiful Indian summer afternoon. And actually there are shadows, aren't there? And the stories you have told us just now remind us that these shadows exist everywhere, in every community, at every level. And those are shadows that often go unnoticed. But Jennifer, when someone like you has the courage to speak about your family's personal experience, believe me, you shine the sun on those shadowed areas, and we thank you. Let's just all of us remember as we go forward that this exists on the nicest of days and on the worst of days, at night, everywhere in the community. Thank you to all of you for bringing this to our attention, and let's just all of us take this as a personal goal to never forget these stories and do everything we can. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for those words. That means a lot to have your support and presence here today. And I want to echo, whether you're a politician or a parent, a police officer, or just a person, that your presence here matters and your ability to influence change matters. We're going to shift and go right into our proclamation, which is something that we kind of collaboratively wrote as a coalition. So we wanted to do this in a collaborative way alongside with the mayor. So we're going to have a few of our members come up and read some of those words. And we'll hopefully have this up on our website for folks to look at later if you missed some of it today. Well, I'll invite folks to come up one by one to do that.
Whereas while our communities continue to recover from the devastating effects of COVID-19 pandemic, domestic violence remains an ongoing pandemic that impacts individuals, families, and our greater Fall River community. And whereas domestic violence most egregiously impacts the vulnerable and marginalized people in our community, including Black, Indigenous, and people of color, immigrants, and the elderly, the economically disenfranchised, LGBTQ folks, women and children, and those with mental or physical disabilities.
Whereas nearly 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner in the United States, which represents more than 10 million victims of domestic violence annually. And whereas violence against women has intensified in the United States and globally since the onset of COVID-19 pandemic, with 1 in 2 women reporting that they or a woman that they know has experienced violence since the pandemic.
Whereas domestic violence is understood to be a problem that is exacerbated by increased confinement with abusive partners, social isolation from support systems, increased unemployment, unstable housing, stress associated with child care, financial insecurity, and lack of substance use supports. And whereas the social and political safety nets put in place at the start of the COVID-19 to aid the public economically, emotionally, and physically are currently disassembling, leaving these minority communities in a state of heightened vulnerability. And
whereas many of these survivors choose not to report to the police, the courts, or domestic violence agencies for fear of being harmed or re-traumatized by the systems that are meant to support them, and are also isolated from in-person support such as therapists, family members, and friends. And whereas we recognize that a coordinated community effort can prevent and abate the pattern of domestic violence, and that all of our citizens deserve to live in a city that is dedicated to their well-being and safety.
Now, therefore, we as members of the Greater Fall River Domestic Violence Coalition, alongside the mayor, commit to dismantling systems of oppression that continue to make domestic violence possible, and commit to upholding an ethic of care and accountability that recognizes the unique vulnerabilities and agencies of survivors. And therefore, we as members of the Greater Fall River Domestic Violence Coalition, alongside the mayor, commit to believing all survivors, and here declare a specific intention to believe and affirm all survivors who experience additional forms of oppression and put them at exponential risk. Therefore, we as members of the Greater Fall River Domestic Violence Coalition, along with the mayor of the city of Fall River, commit to addressing the unique and intensified problems that have arisen for survivors due to the COVID-19 pandemic through improving the system that provides assistance for all survivors and recognize the importance of our collective action in achieving this change. Now, therefore, we as members of the Greater Fall River Domestic Violence Coalition, alongside Mayor Paul Coogan, the Mayor of Fall River, do hereby proclaim October 2022 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and everybody. I'm going to beautifully transition over to the flag and raise it, and that will conclude our event for the day. But thank you all so much.